So hi there everyone, and welcome to episode 1 of Talking Tottenham on my channel. Just before we begin, I'm sure you're probably all asking yourself, who am I and what is my channel all about, because it's the first video I've uploaded on here. Well, as you may or may not know, I've got my own football website which I run called the Terrace, and on there I write about everything Tottenham, from transfer rumours to the latest results and news. I write articles about it basically. My name's Jordan. I've been a Tottenham fan for my entire life, which is about 27 and a half years, and the club means a lot to me, like it does a lot of people. My first ever game that I can remember going to was at home to Coventry back in about 1995 in the Premier League. I went with my dad, who's been a season ticket holder at Spurs for 20-25 years, and it's probably the most boring game you could imagine, to be honest. It was a 0-0, and the only thing I remember from it is having a chit king before the game and then walking up the steps, looking at the stadium, being gobsmacked at the two massive jumbotrons either end, and then Andy Sinton hitting the crossbar about the 89th minute. That was it really. So it was a good day. Of course it is your first ever game, but I've been to a lot of more memorable ones since then, put it that way. But you always remember your first game, don't you? So each week my aim is to record at least one of these videos and cover most of the main talking points coming out of White Hart Lane or at Wembley. Obviously so much happens in a season, I'm not going to be able to cover all of it, but hopefully you guys will enjoy what I do cover. I hope to get one or two of these out every week, but at the moment what I'm going to do is just cover the transfer talk at the moment, because obviously we haven't played any games in pre-season yet, so I thought I'd discuss the transfer activity, or lack of it, to be honest. Obviously some of them blatantly won't happen, such as I've seen some ridiculous ones this summer like Morata for 70 million, which I think Levy would have an aneurysm if he ever shelled out that much for a player. But there has been some which obviously might happen. You've got the more likely ones that you've seen in the media in the last couple of weeks, which aren't going away. And what I'm going to do today is basically talk about them and give my opinion on them. So you might not agree with it, you might agree with it. Obviously I'm always up for a bit of debate, discussion, so feel free to interact with me in the comments in this video or on my Twitter. I'm at East Terrace 00, and obviously I've got my website as well, which is www.eastterrace.net. So obviously all feedback, I will try and reply to everything, and I'll take everything on board to improve throughout the season, because obviously it's only going to get better. So yeah, let's see what happens. Anyway, moving on to transfers, obviously the one that's been spoken about most so far this summer has been Ross Barkley. As most people know, most Everton fans, well, pretty much everyone in the Premier League knows, he got offered a contract back at the arse end of last season, and he turned it down by the look of it. So Koeman had enough of him, and it looks as if he's fallen out and he's going to get rid of him this summer. Spurs seem to be the front runners for it, although I've seen Chelsea and Man United linked in the last couple of days, but the one that makes the most sense is the Spurs move, about 35 million, which we've been talking about. There has been a few worrying apparent wage demands that have come out. 150 grand a week apparently his agent has come out and said that he wants, which would make him by far the most paid Tottenham player probably in their history, to be honest. I mean, I know that Kane's on I think 100, Hugo's on 120, so be a bit of a strange one if he was to walk straight in and earn more than those guys. But obviously 100 grand a week in the Premier League now is like a tenner to me and you. It's frightening how far it's going, but obviously we'll see how that goes with that one. In terms of what Barkley's like as a player, I really like him. I think he's definitely a Pochettino type attacking midfielder. Obviously you've got Christian Eriksen, Dele Alli. He matches that kind of mould. He's good on the ball. He likes to get it down and play. He's quick, and he's got that little bit of a nasty side to him, which Dele's also got as well. And obviously if he channels that in the right way, I've seen a couple of games for Everton where he just gets his head down when he runs at players. You can't stop him. There was a game against Newcastle a couple of years ago. he pretty much took on the whole Newcastle side by himself, and nobody could get anywhere near him, and he put the ball top bins, and it was a brilliant goal. It kind of introduced him on the Premier League stage to a lot of fans, including myself, really. Obviously he has stalled a little bit over the last couple of years, but whether that's because he needs to progress his career at a different club or he's not being played in the right position, not sure. It's a bit of a tricky one, but obviously we'll have to see how it goes, because that 30 million bracket, obviously we know who come in last year for 30 million, who's also an aggressive attacking midfielder, goes by the name of Moussa Sissoko. So obviously whether Levy's had his hands burnt by that one, and he'll have a bad experience and he'll be afraid to go back in and spend that kind of money on a player again, unless you try, do you? So we'll see how that one goes. The next player on the list is Riyad Mahrez, the Algerian attacking midfielder at Leicester. Obviously everyone remembers how good he was in that season that they stormed to the Premier League 5,000 to 1, and they walked it by 10 points in the end, I think it was. Pretty much everything went through him in midfield. I think he ended up with about 16 goals and 12 assists that season. He was absolutely brilliant, and that performance at Man City where they pretty much stormed it from that point, didn't they? Everybody was raving about Mahrez and Kante and Vardy, and they were the three, pretty much the three key men towards Leicester winning that league title. And I think everyone thought that he was going to go after that. Obviously he was linked with Barcelona. There's a couple of other big clubs in for him. I think Arsenal was another one of the clubs that was in for him that summer, but obviously once Leicester had competed and obviously won the league that season, Champions League the next season, I think Ranieri promised him one more year and he'd definitely go. And obviously the way that the season panned out last year, he was very, very disappointing. Whether he had already had his head turned and his heart wasn't in it when Leicester started to struggle, when it was clear they weren't going to hit the heights they reached the year before, I'm not sure. But obviously 50 million is being spoken about for him, and there is just absolutely no way that we're going to pay 50 million for Riyad Mahrez, especially when you've got players like Suso, the attacking midfielder at AC Milan, who's also been linked as well for 21 million. There's just no way, when there's alternatives, that 50 million is even thinkable for Levy to pay out on a player, especially given the financial situation that we're in at the moment. So doesn't seem the most likely. He kind of reminds me of a bit of Mesut Ozil on his day. He's brilliant when he turns it on. He's got that left-footed, cultured kind of swagger about him when he's in the mood, but can be a passenger when it's not going his team's way. So obviously Pochettino doesn't accept passengers in his side, and that's why Sissoko struggled this year as well. So obviously you've got to be a certain mould of player to fit in at Pochettino's side. So if he was to come in, obviously if Levy can do a deal with Leicester, he's going to have to get that out of his system. He's going to have to get his head down and work hard. But honestly, like I say, I can't really see it happening. I think Suso or Barkley is very much the more likely transfers out of the two to go ahead, really. Obviously all of the players that we've been talking about here are are all attacking midfielders. I think it's clear that Pochettino, whilst he's been out in America on tour with the lads, has said that he's happy with the squad he's got, but he'd like a couple more just to strengthen the core of the team, really. Obviously strength in depth last year was a massive issue for us. I know that there was a couple of games in particular, such as the Chelsea game in the FA Cup semi-final at Wembley. That was the one that really made a lot of fans kind of realise just how weak we are in depth coming off the bench. Obviously, we did well for 50-60 minutes and we were well in it, and then Chelsea throw on Diego Costa, one of the best strikers in the league. He throws on Eden Hazard, one of the best players in the world. He throws on Fabregas, who can unlock even the tightest of defences. So obviously we all saw what happened. They stormed onto it. We could only look on the bench and see Vincent Janssen. It's not the most as hard working as Vinny is. When you put him up against players on the opposite bench, such as Hazard and Costa. It's an absolute no-brainer, really, is it? We were brutally exposed last season. I think there was a couple of games in the Champions League as well, where we just needed that little spark of brilliance off the bench, a little bit of fresh legs, and we didn't quite have it there, unfortunately. So, obviously, that's why I think the sale of Kyle Walker annoyed so many people, because, second place finish last year, did so well in the league. It was one of the best. We've got one of the best young squads in Europe, so close to winning the league, but it really doesn't help when you sell one of your best players for 50 million, and then you're arguing over a few million to try and get Ricardo Pereira at Porto for a 22 million buyout clause when you just got 50 million in the bank from selling your other right back. As good as Trippier is, if he gets injured, who have we got coming in? Kyle Walker-Peters, as good as he is at youth level, I don't think he's going to cut it at Premier League level just yet. I might be wrong, but it's a long way from under 23 and under 19 football to Premier League. And as well as we've done with promoting youth, obviously we're just going to have to see how that goes in the future. But there is no doubt that we're going to have to strengthen, because otherwise we're just going to get shown up again, and all of the hard work we put towards finishing second last year will all be to waste, really. Anyway, what was I going to talk about next? So you've got, obviously the attacking midfielders we've covered. The other player that I was going to talk about, centre half Juan Foyth, I think his name is, the 19-year-old Argentinian centre back at Estudiantes in Argentina. Looks like we've missed out on him. I know that Pochettino rated him highly. We were linked with I think it was a £7.5 million bid that got turned down by the Argentine club. And it looks as if he's going to PSG, which is a bit of a shame, because obviously with women making noises about him wanting to leave the club, we do need centre halves, backup options, especially with Vertonghen and Alderweireld picking up injuries throughout the last couple of seasons, which have significantly weakened us. So obviously I'm not sure what's happened there. It can't, the story come out of nowhere. Looks as if it'd be wrapped up quite quickly, and we couldn't quite get that one over the line, which has frustrated even more of the Levy haters. It is frustrating, but obviously the club's obviously got a financial plan in place there, and we've just got to see how it goes in the next couple of years. We're not going to be spending 40, 50, 60 million on players, because moving into the new stadium, it's just not possible to do that. Like I said, kick-off's not for I think the first round of games is the 20th of August, something like that. So we've got plenty of time yet. But as you can see with Man United, Man City spending over 200 million, we do need to get these players in quickly and bed them into the side, because we're going to have to rely on players throughout the season that aren't in that first 11. Obviously, if we want to finish in that top four and bring Champions League football back to the new lane, or whatever it's going to be called, the HP Dome or something, obviously, we've got to give ourselves the best chance possible, because Pochettino's been working absolute wonders with the squad that he's been given over the last few years. But I think this year is going to be a step too far unless he really strengthens. When you have a look at what teams below and above us have done, it's going to be an interesting one. So, like I said before, there'll be plenty of these videos to come over the summer. This is just very much a rough roundup of what's been going on over summer so far. I know we haven't, actually signed anyone yet, but there's certainly talk, and I think I think deals will be done. But it's all just about the money, isn't it? At the end of the day, when it comes to Levy, he wants what's best for the club, and as frustrating as it is, something will get done, but I think it'll go right down to the wire so we can get the best possible deal for the player and the club. So, like I say, I'm hoping that you enjoy these. Obviously, I'm more than happy to take on board criticism and praise and advice and recommendations as to what I should talk about for other bits later on in the season, and even in pre-season. Just let me know on my Twitter at EastTerrace00. and on my website www.eastterrace.net. And thanks very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll speak to you soon. Okay, cheers.